Hello, this is a homily for the sixth Sunday of the year, and as you know, we're getting to the point where we are preparing for the Feast of Pentecost. Pentecost will be on the 31st of this month. And in this reading, set of readings for the Eucharist, what we have done is we've shifted completely into the operation of the Church. We started Easter, obviously, with the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and from then on, we went through the resurrection appearances of Jesus. Then we started to hear about, I'll be with you always, I will give you the Spirit, and the Spirit will be with you, and so forth. And all of that is essentially shifting the theological focus to the great feast of Pentecost, which concludes the formation of the church in this world. So these readings are much in the same vein, and what we have, if you read these things in historical order, is to start with the Gospel. And the Gospel will be, it's from John's Gospel, so as with all the great feast days in the church, we have St. John's Gospel. It was written latest out of the Gospels that were selected by the church, and it kind of serves as a focal point. The main teachings that just pop up very briefly in the first three Gospels are put together in a final form in the Gospel of St. John. So you have John 14 as the Gospel today, and you have Jesus saying, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. That's the life of the church from then until he comes again. And this is what's important for us today, I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate to be with you always. He himself is an advocate, and that's why he lived this life on earth, fulfilled the mission of the Word in the earthly present form, and now he's going to send another advocate as well. And what we have, if you look at how the church has been essentially instituted, is that it starts just with Jesus. He gathers a group of followers around him. He gradually teaches them and graces them to do certain things, goes through his death and resurrection, sends the advocate, and the Holy Spirit, that advocate, is the one that makes this concrete structure. Bear in mind, if you'd been in Palestine in the right place at the right time, you could have met this man, met his disciples, heard the teaching, seen the miracles, and now you have him saying, I will send you another advocate. That advocate is Spirit, and consequently it deals with the interior spiritual life of the disciples. Then, and all the way through now, and right up to the end of the world. So you have both a concrete aspect, visible aspect to the church, and an interior spiritual aspect to the church. Both of these together make the church be what it is. So you have in John's Gospel that he will send another advocate, the Spirit of truth, the one that the world cannot accept. And he will remain with you and, notice the phrase, be in you. In other words, we're not running on our own here. We are running with this interior presence of the divine Spirit that we should be paying attention to. There's a whole interior life to being Catholic. If you read the great saints, you will find they found it. They learned how to do it. Moving on then, I will not leave you orphans, etc., etc. Whoever loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and reveal myself to him. So Jesus hasn't disappeared from the picture. It's just that he is working in one sense, the Spirit is working in another sense. And essentially, the Spirit is helping us to deal with what Jesus reveals. And he explains that in his words in the Gospel today. Okay, so Jesus has announced the Spirit will be coming. Now we go back to the first reading, and the first reading is taken from the book of Acts. And if you pay attention to the reading, it deals with events that happened after the coming of the Spirit. And here you have the story of Philip. You have him preaching in the city of Samaria and proclaiming Christ to them. Unclean spirits were cast out, people were cured, and there was great joy in the city. So what you have here is the church functioning. It's not that they simply have some kind of spiritual experience and are therefore full members of church. They have to hear about Christ from Philip, concrete human being who arrived in their community. Then he sends to them Peter and John. Again, it's not just a spiritual experience. These two concrete people have to go to Samaria and have to lay hands upon the people and pray for them. And what happens is, last line, they receive the Holy Spirit. So the church now is complete in Samaria. We don't know much more about the history of the church from the New Testament, but that's as far as we needed to go today. The psalm picks up the theme, first of all, of people joyfully shouting to God, all the earth. Okay, it applies in this new context of this new community, where the community is able to celebrate the fact that God has shared his Spirit with them. Second verse, let all the earth worship. That's the reason for the community existing in the first place, to gradually get other people to pay attention to the fact that a part of life, everybody's life, should be to worship a real God. We have then a reference back to the Exodus in the third verse, and then lastly, hear now all you who fear God, while I declare what he has done for me. In other words, that paragraph would fit exactly with what Philip did in the city of Samaria. Second reading comes from 1 Peter, so obviously post Pentecost, and Peter is essentially giving people, essentially encouraging them in certain skills. And for example, sanctify Christ as Lord in your heart. Be ready to give an explanation of what it is you believe. Again, simply witnessing to what Christ has done for that person. And then a message on suffering, that there will be suffering, but it's better to suffer for doing good. So do the good things that you need to do. If that brings suffering, well, okay, it brings suffering. So there you have a couple of messages about the operation of the church. Have a beautiful day and stay safe.